Hey everyone, this is a set of tutorials for setting up the PitchiPoy rig in Blender. This should start to be included from 2.73, 2.74 onwards. That's excellent rig setup. Thank you very much to the guys at PitchiPoy. It's targeted at, you know your way around the interface, you know your shortcut keys, you're moving around the viewport. If there's anything of interest around those sort of things, I'll call out as we go through. But mainly, I'm going to work on the assumption that you can do that and you can model and you know the basic controls. So what we're going to go through is quickly setting up the workspace and very quickly just where to get a mesh from if you want to do test mesh. The one I've got here is up from Make Human. And then what we're going to do is setting up the meta rig, including the face, and we'll break it into sections. How to parent the rig, including the eyes, tongue and mouth, and setting up all the weight painting there. And then in some later tutorials, hopefully we'll go through customizing the rig, because you can add on different bones and rig types. That was really good. And also one around adding more clothing and slightly more complicated materials that you need to deform. So sort of transferring weight paint, and that type of thing. But that'll be in a later set. I may split this into a couple of tutorials. We'll see how we go for time. So without further ado, let's get going. The mesh we're going to be using I've downloaded from Make Human. It's excellent. It's open source. Very liberal licenses they've got on there for what you want to do with it. And I've just exported it. It's not a Make Human tutorial. You can go and look up some of those. I've just exported it as an OBJ file along with eyes, teeth, and tongue. And that's what we're going to be using in the tutorial. Just go for it. I mean, you can export it with add-ons for Blender as well, and the old Rigify that this new one's actually based on. So you can play around with that if you want. But again, that's not what this tutorial about. This is about setting up the new PitchiPoy Rigify, and so we're just using it as a base mesh. Imported the base mesh into Blender. I'm just running a theme because I like it, but apart from that, this is pretty much a standard install. So I've split out the eyes and the body onto two separate layers. Don't have to do that, but it's just for convenience. And then with the eyes here, if you see, I've actually split them into two separate objects because it obviously expects that. And the same with the mouth. When you export it from Make Human, it comes as one object because I think the other rigs deform it. Whereas we're going to actually parent this directly to the bones, so it needs to be two. And then the tongue. It's just the tongue. Okay, so that's pretty self-explanatory. That's all it is. So no controls, no nothing. So to use the rig, you need to enable Python and you need to enable the add-on. So we'll quickly do that now. So File, User Preferences. Okay, and if you look in the file system, you can set it to auto-run Python scripts. And what I've done is, if I'm looking at other people's files and that, I've added the downloads as an exclusion path. So it means if I double click on anything in there, it won't auto run the Python, and I'll get a choice to intercept or have a look at what's going on in the file to make sure there's nothing odd going on in there. Okay, so you don't have to do that, but just a trick. Or you can reload the file each time, it's just convenient. And then we're going to add the add-on. So it's called the Rigify. Rigging, here we go. Okay, so just enable that and save user settings. Okay, so now when we look at the add option and armature, okay, we now have two. So this one here is the old Rigify rig, and this is the PitchiPoy version. So you just click that and add it. And that's the basic sort of setup for the workspace. I don't need to do anything clever than that. Just some points of note. I try to keep my models to sort of real world size. So this guy here, well, these are in Blender units, but it's essentially 1.8. You could call that 1.8 meters. So you can see it's not far off this rig. And the scales applied and the rotations applied. Again, none of that's sort of critical. I think it's just, I find it good practice, especially if you're going to add hair and that sort of thing to it later. Having it vaguely real world size makes everything work a lot better, especially in cycles. So that's it really, nothing more to it than that. So let's get on with setting up the rig. First thing we're going to do is we're going to scale the initial rig down to the size of our model. You don't spend hours on this, just get it roughly right. And then I like to just apply the scale as well. I don't think it really matters, but just in case, I tend to do it anyway. Yeah, that's all we need to do. So let's get started. We're going to bottom up, so we're going to start with the feet. So into edit mode, we'll start with this little bone on the back here. The first thing we're going to do is see up here in options, you've got X-axis mirror. If you check that, and it just means that if you're moving a bone on one side, it moves it on the other side as well. So this little bone here is the pivot point for the back of the heel. So if you've got like a pair of boots or something on, then you do it on the back side of the boot where it sort of pivots. I'm going to stick it sort of smack bang under the middle of the foot, around there. Actually, the other thing I'm going to do quickly is just turn on X-ray. I tend to flick X-ray on and off with the armature. It can be annoying and sometimes not. So I tend to work in like one flick from view to view, and actually usually I turn the widget off because I find it annoying, but it's quite useful in this circumstance. So I'm just going to line this up, and you don't have to be madly accurate with this. You can always come back and tweak it later. So I'm lining up with the middle of the foot, and then the break point of the heel around there. And yeah, one thing that you sort of get over when you've done a couple of these is you can go in and tweak it. It's not the end of the world. Make sure you're not sort of overly rotating the bones and things like that. Try and keep them as sort of straight as possible. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to move the actual feet. Move both these bones over. So this is the feet and the toes. So I'm just going to pull that across. And again, just looking from the front. So I'm lining that roughly in the middle. That's obviously the ankle joint. And then from here, just move this forward. Flip from side to side. That looks about right. And then this little bone here. Now I found with this one, I found it better to have it slightly off to one side like that with the feet. Otherwise, so this is where it's going to pivot for the toes. So I found around like, actually, let's just make that back a bit. Around like that. It's about right. So you see where it's lined up roughly with the line of the toes. And then I had it slightly over to where the big toe is in this case. Again, depending on what shape boots and things you have on or feet. Yeah, and that's it really. So that's the toe. That's the feet done. So let's go on to the legs now. So again, I try and do sort of at least many moves as possible. So I'm just going to move obviously up to the knees. Okay, so it's going to be around there. Looks about right. Okay. Now, one thing that was the guys made clear in the sort of official video was when it calculates the IK rig for the leg, it's slightly different to how the original Rigify rig does it, and expects you have to give it a bit of a hint by making sure that you have a little bit of a curve in the leg, so it knows which way to bend it. So if you have the top of the leg here sort of dead straight, okay, then there's a chance that when you set up the IK that it won't really know which way to flip it because of how it does the maths. I've not looked at the code, but that's what they said in the thing. So I just make sure that even if this bone's forward slightly, I'll just give it like a little bit of a kink like that. And this one obviously goes up with the hips. So something like that, I think that's probably right. Again, you can just come back and you probably have to do a few iterations of this as you go through and tweak it. So something like that should work, and that's probably enough of an angle. If we know you need to go back in and tweak it, then we can. So let's finish off the legs with this piece here. So these are not actually deformation bones. Well, obviously you've got the spine is, but these two bones here, they use them to help manage the weight distribution. Because if you didn't have them, when you do auto weight painting, essentially the top of the leg here is going to take a big chunk of influence around here, and just with the spine. So what this does is this actually these do get in for deformation, but what they do is they help take the weight away from when you auto weight it. So I usually put them sort of somewhere like that. And again, you're probably going to have to do just a couple of rounds of tweaking, but it's not horrendous. Yeah, and so what will happen is they'll get weights allocated to them. So you can see now that when you move this bone here, it's not going to have as much influence around the stomach area, for example. Yeah, so that's that part. So with that, that's the legs done. They're a nice easy bit, and we'll do the spine next. Yep, just going to move these roughly towards the center of the model. So that's the recommendation from the developers of the rig. Obviously, in a sort of a real anatomy, the spine is going to be going down the back, but it's a sort of balancing act between having it sort of anatomically correct and having it deform correctly. They also recommend that these lower bones here are roughly evenly spaced to get a better deformation. So that's what we do. So and the neck bones here, so we don't have to be quite so worried about those. There. And you see this bone, if you look in the little right hand corner, if you click on the little stem here, there's actually two bones that are overlapping. So that becomes really important when we do the face, because there's a lot of bones there that actually look like they're parented, but they're not. They're overlapping and you have to move them together. So I'll run through that when we get to do the face. Now this doesn't actually matter. It's just for this particular instance, I'm just going to move the spine bone separately and then just roughly align the face bone afterwards, because they don't have to be exactly the same place. Yeah, but that does matter for when we actually start doing the face bones. And then this top bit, I'm just going to pop it just at the top of his head. And just move that. It's a bit more in the middle of the neck there. And I'm just going to grab this face bone and just roughly align it with the spine as well. So you don't have to be super accurate with that. What have we got? Looks about right. Might space these a tiny bit more. Again, you can always come back and tweak this. Yeah, I think that's good. And while we're doing the spine, let's do these two bones here. So these are the sort of these again are a bit like the pelvis bones. They help take the weight from under the arms. So you imagine if you didn't have them here and just had what you normally see in the rigs, then you've got this big area here, which is going to get influenced by this bone, and what this does, this again, you get a separate controller for these, but they're really just here to take the sort of some more of the weight painting. So you end up with a much nicer deformation through auto parenting than you do normally. So I'm just going to auto weight painting. I'm just going to move this forward like this. Essentially just line it up with the nipples, and then I'm going to take the back a little bit, but not too far, because it can end up having a sort of adverse effect. Yeah, and sort of clashing with the spine, something like that. Okay, and yeah, let's just do the shoulders as well while we're here. So I think they look okay in the middle. I'm just going to move this up slightly from the side. And then when we set the arms up as well, again, you have to be careful with the spacing with these. I'm just going to put it roughly right. What I usually do with these is basically get it all parented up and then check, and then come back and probably redo it again, just move it slightly just to see what the arm looks like. Something like that. It's probably going to be about right for starters. So that's it. So that's the spine done. We're going to do the arm next, and then the fingers, which are always joyous, but nowhere near as fun as the face. So yeah, we'll do the arm next. So what I've done is I've highlighted the arm I'm going to work on. I'm actually going to hide the other side of the mesh. Okay, just so, because when you're X-ray on it can get really, really confusing quite quickly. With X-axis mirrors, it's still mirroring the other mesh, even though we can't see it, which is really cool. Yeah, so this is where it gets a bit more sort of tricky with lining things up. So I'm just going to start the same, working from both sides. And there's a couple of different tricks you can do depending on how accurate you want to be. So this one at the top here, is the relationship between these two is important, because it really sort of defines where you get any pinching when you sort of lift the arm up. And I haven't thought of a good way to sort of predict that. So I sort of put it where I see fit, and then just come back and change it if I need to when we actually move the rig around once we've parented it, because it's really a quick process to actually do the parenting. So it really isn't that big a deal just to come back and forth a little bit. Obviously, we want to try and get it as accurate as we can. So we're just placing these at the key pivot points. Now we will have to go back in and change the bone roll, and I'll talk to that at the end when we've put the bones in place. But for now, we're just going to concentrate on putting them in place. I'm just going to move the whole hand in one bit. And here, and in this view. I mean, you can sort of be a bit more technical about placing these. So, for example, if I come out of this and go to the mesh, for this one here, if I highlight a loop around here, stick cursor to the selection, come back out, and select the cursor. Okay, then it will jump, and you know you've got it bang on in the middle of the mesh. So yeah, that's quite handy. So if you're having some trouble sort of seeing where the actual mesh is, which you can do when you get to some of these bits that are more complex, and that's quite a good little trick. Just gonna do the same for this one. But as I say, I mean, you can also eyeball it. It's absolutely fine. Okay, but we know we've got those in the right place, and you can see actually it doesn't look too bad with the bones at the moment, but we'll go back and check all that after. On to the fingers. Okay, so I'm just going to border select these. Actually, I'll get this as well. Just going to rotate. Oh no, now I've ruined what I did there. I'm just going to grab it instead. That's okay. And I'm going to undo that one and rotate. So don't forget, these bones, you just, it's all about positioning it. You're not going to break anything moving this stuff around. You will break the face rig if you sort of move bones that you think are supposed to be connected. But with this, it's fine. So this is the main bone that's sort of round to where the palm of the hand is. So I'll just put this bit in the middle of the palm here. And again, just now we're having to sort of eyeball it more. Yeah. And what I tend to do here is I might flick from X-ray to off. So I just find it easier to visualize, where my bone is. I.e., I can't see it poking out the mesh, so I know it's in there somewhere. So that looks about right. I'll put X-ray back on. And these bones, you can imagine these are the bones. If you look at the back of your hand, feeding into the knuckles. So these just be spaced out, and I'll just move those into place. So you can see these two here aren't actually stuck together. So this is a classic where you need to move these together. So if you just hold down Shift and click it again, then it'll pick up both bones. So that becomes really important. So that Shift right click. Okay. When you're doing the face rig, that's vital. Okay, because we're not working so much in side to side view, the widget's annoying me now. So I'm just going to turn it off. Okay, and again, you can sort of go in, just do the trick with the mesh as well. But I find it works just as well like this. So I'm just really at the moment just roughly lining these up. And once we've done one, then I'll just go, but I won't even bother time lapsing it. I'll just come back when I've finished. We'll just get one finished, so you can see what it looks like, and then you just rinse and repeat for all of them. You don't want to be sitting through that. So what I tend to do again here, so I'm going to flip off X-ray here. Okay, for this one, and I'm just going to position this one with X-ray off. Oops. Okay, so you can see there, Shift, pick them both up. Okay, it's not a disaster. You can easily move them back together again. Now some people, I've seen other people do it where they've used wireframe to do this. So whatever you're comfortable with, it's really how you like to model, I guess, as much as anything. I just leave the little tip sticking out the finger. That's looking about right. I'm just going to move this one inside a bit more. And yeah, I'm not doing anything magical. I'm really just eyeballing these. Flip X-ray back on again. Okay, so they're all roughly in the right place. Now, obviously, having a wonky old thing like that's not going to be conducive to having it deform well. So I'll just fix that as well. You want these, like, obviously in a nice sort of straight line. So you can see here the bones are well out of whack with the roll. And we'll do that in a sec. Let's just do the thumb. So the thumb's obviously got one less bone. Let's just put that roughly in place. And if you look at your own thumb, where it actually hinges from is from here. Okay, so it's slightly different to the fingers. And again, I'm just going to flip off X-ray for a sec. Let's see where I go. Oh, must be getting better. I just find it really hard to visualize it when it's like this sometimes. I don't know if you guys find the same. Okay, it's looking good. So I'm just making sure that these are sort of straight. I think they're looking about right. Yeah. Okay, that's good. So let's do the bone roll on these. So I can show you what to do, and then I'll just finish the rest off and then come back, because it's just repeating for all of them. So I'm going to turn on axis. Okay, so this sort of confused me to start with, and we will actually go back over and check all the bones at some point. I'll show you the arm one because it's easier to see for now. So where this top bone comes to this bone, all right, you can see it's a pivot on the X towards the Z. Okay, and that is really all there is to it. It took me, I don't know why, it took me a while to get my head around that because it seemed quite complicated, but there isn't any more to it than that. So that's the direction that the hinge is actually going to go. So if you look on the side here, now I think there's a shortcut for this as well, but I just quite like sliding on here. You can see the degrees here, and so if I drag that from left to right, you can see the bone spins. Okay, so it's the tip of the bone, yeah, that changes. Okay, so that actually looks okay. And so you just need to look at it and think, right, where would it hinge? So the wrist's a funny one because obviously it can go in any direction. So at the moment we've got it sort of left to right, which is the sort of default, so I'm going to leave it at that. So let's look at the fingers. These are important because you need to be thinking, if you look at your own finger and how you clench them together, so that's where the hinge needs to be. So if you look at this one, so we're bending at the X, okay, towards the Z. So actually they don't look too bad. And you want to try and get sort of roughly and nice and I don't think it actually look too bad at all. Tweak that one slightly. So all I'm doing is just dragging the slider. Okay, and yeah, because we haven't actually spun them round loads, I mean it's going to be, just don't overspin them. Just with all these things, just do the minimum. This one's definitely out of whack. So you can see like Z should be pointing down and it's not. So we'll just start from the end here. Yeah, and we'll just roll them. It really is as simple as that. Same this one. I think I was actually out of it. Yeah, it just takes a little bit, and you might not get it right first time. It's very satisfying when it does work, and you sort of, there you go. And that looks about right. Good enough. You're not going to know until you try it. So I'm going to stop the video here and position the rest of them. There's nothing else to tell you about this that's any different. Yeah, and then we'll move on to the face. Here we go. So done all the fingers, exactly the same what we did before. Yeah, and just make sure all the rolls are about right. Although every time I look at them, I always see something that's not. I think that's normal though. You could just spend your life doing this and it would never look quite right, I think is the general answer. Every time you look at it from a different angle. So I just give up at some point, where it's good enough and then you need to just try it. So I'm going to follow my own advice and leave that now. Take the rest of the rig off, so now you can see here on the other side it's all mirrored nicely, and yeah, we are good to go to the next stage. So next up is the face. So the face can look a little bit overwhelming to start with, but we'll break it down into chunks. So I'm just going to turn off the access, because I don't need those for now, and it's less important for the face, because for the most part, apart from obvious things like the jaw, these bones are really showing where the sort of muscles are. So you're really aligning them more with the skin. So with the other bones where we put them centrally around sort of deformation, these ones are sort of deforming it more at the sort of skin layer. Some slight exceptions, obviously, with some of the jaw and like the lips and bits. Yeah, but for the most part, we're just positioning them on the skin, and the actual bone roll as such is not so, does not matter because of that. However, saying that, I mean, I try not to fiddle about it. I try and move them as little as possible. So I'm just going to hide the spine, and then really everything below it as well, just so we can see what we're doing a bit better. Okay. Now, one thing that's great that the guys have done on this is they've actually named all the bones sensibly. So, okay, we can see here we've got jaw, cheek bottom, cheek top, okay, brow top, brow bottom, forehead. So although it does look really overwhelming, they're all in fairly logical places. So if you know your human anatomy, then you'll understand where they are. Yeah, so let's just get started, and I'll probably do this in a couple of sections. So we'll do the, we'll start from the bottom and work up. So this is the jaw bones. Okay, this is not actually how it hinges. This is really around telling it where they actually are. So it's just a single set of bones down the middle, so you don't want to change that. And all we do with this one is we're just aligning it to the bottom of the jaw. And the recommendation was to really have it like this, so you just inside the skin on this. Again, it's not mega critical. Okay. And it comes in like that. It just follows the line of the jaw on the way around there. That one. Let's do the nose next. That's nice and easy. Okay. So I think we'll find that the nose is probably one of these ones where we have to, So this is one we see they look like they're joined together, but they're not really. So if you just do shift, click, okay, and then you can start to grab them. Obviously it was mirroring there as well. So obviously goes to the tip of the nose. And again, just sort of following the skin. We're just under the skin. So if you're not sure what it is, just click on the bone. You can see on the description, nose one. Okay, and again, it's important you keep these ones connected. So just shift click. Okay, we'll just drag that up to the top of the nose. That's cool. That's good. Move these two out. Okay, so these are defining the arch down here. Okay, that looks about right. And let's quickly do the ears as well. Over here, because they're nice and easy. So you've got this loop of bones here. Okay, and I'm just going to move the jawbone forward, just that's out of the way for now. See what we're doing. And I'm just going to hide the head bone, because I don't need that. Okay, so we'll just get these positioned. So actually I'm going to turn off X-ray for a sec. So I just find it easier just to see what I'm doing. So this is the main controller bone for the ear. So this all just goes flat to the skin at the front here, which is where you'll get like a little controller. Okay, and then the rest of them literally just go in a little circle around the ear. And you really don't have to spend ages worrying about where they go. Okay. It's quite fun. I mean, just turn some music on, just chill out. I think it's one of those things that the first time you do it, you're just like going through thinking, oh, I'm wasting so much time doing this. Is it going to work or not? I think once you've done a couple and it sort of works, I'm just going to turn my widget back on again just to help me move some of these. Yeah, once you've done it a couple of times and it works for you, then you just it actually becomes quite enjoyable, I think, isn't it? And the sort of mystery goes as well. It's the first couple of times you do it, things sort of appear to happen for no apparent reason, which obviously they don't, but that's sort of what it feels like, and that tends to go as well. So that's good enough. Just for the ear there. And I'm just checking on the front here as well where I've put the bones. For the nose, that look alright. Some little side bones as well, yeah. They've done a really top-notch job on this. Yes, these are the nose left and right. Okay, so I'm just going to grab that right down. That goes down to here, and as you see, I think, yeah, they're all connected together. It's really just defining the side here. Turn X-ray off. Squish that in a bit. And sometimes actually, if you don't access on it, actually, well, no, it's a bit overwhelming. It's okay. Just gonna pull them in a little bit. That's okay. You should really just sit like this where you've got a tiny bit sort of poking through. That's okay. Yep, they're looking good. Cool. So let's do the cheeks next. Well, actually, no, mouth. We'll do the mouth now. This is actually like 3 joined together here, so you can see. So just hold Shift and click it 3 times so they all move together. There you go. It's important you keep an eye on that and don't rush and leave any line behind. So we're just going to line these up. So quite a few bones stacked on top of each other here. You just need to keep an eye on. Just flipping from side to side to make sure I pick the right one. Looking good. Let's get this 3-way one again. This just sits in the corner of the mouth. And just move these ones forward. They're going to sit slightly below the skin for the lips. Okay, so looking about right. I'm going to turn X-ray off. Okay, and I'm just going to push these in and out a little bit so they just sit in a tiny bit deeper. It's about the only time I really like using the widget. It seems to work really well for this. I'm just going to move these in slightly as well. I'm just going to turn X-ray back on. Make sure that I've picked up all 3 of them. I'm just going to flip it off a bit. I mean, as I say, you can do this with wireframe as well. Just how I like to do it. There you go. It just sits a tiny bit deeper. Cool. That's the mouth done. Let's go on to the cheeks now. So you've got these 4 bones here. Okay, so just move these into place so they just basically follow the cheek line. And these sit fairly close to the skin. They've got bottom cheek and top cheek. Move. And again, you don't have to worry about the rotation on these. right? Those two are linked together. It's a little bit fiddly, but just take your time. I'm just sort of lining these up with the cheek line down here. These aren't too critical because really what they do is they're just placing place markers on the skin. You'll see when we generate the rig. So yeah, the rig's not going to fall apart. It just depends how what you're actually using it for. Looks about right. I'm just going to bring these down slightly so they're sort of averaged out between the jaw and the top of the cheek more than anything. I'll bring that top one forward a bit as well. So it's more in line with that. Yeah, about there should do. That's cool. Okay, we'll do the jaw now as well. We'll hit. So these are all the jawbone, and again you see the well, the top one's the temple. This is the actual bit that it hinges from here, and the guy from the company that did the rig was saying that actually, although you're hinging around sort of here on your actual head, you're actually better off having this bone like slightly lower down, so we can see that you get a better result like that. So not to argue with the person that did the rig. So that's what it seems to work alright. And this comes down a bit as well. Alright. We're looking okay there. I'm just going to tweak the bone roll on this one just so I remember while I'm here. So it's the same as before. So I'm just going to spin it around slightly so it's more pivoting on the X. Same for that one. Okay. And so we'll just flick over and check these as well at the end. That's the only one you really need to worry about on the face. So the rest of them are just sort of essentially surface deformation bones, apart from obviously the eye and the tongue and the teeth, which are slightly different. Okay, so that's the jaw setup basically. Yeah. So now we're going to do the forehead. Forehead now. Actually, we'll move the eyes down as well. Let's start putting these in position. So I'm just literally just going to grab them loosely, put them in position there. So that's obviously the eyelids. This is the eyebrow. So there. And this is where I start to do the forehead. So this bit here is actually this top ridge along here, so we'll set that up first because they're not joined. That, and then these are the forehead bones, and they can just come down to here. And they just follow, so they all just follow the similar sort of path as you go through. Right, let's get them lined up properly. So we'll do the forehead first. Start at the top. As you can see, they're quite far back. So I didn't realise they were quite that far back, so we'll just move them all roughly forwards first. And obviously that one stays more there. These, like the other ones, you just really just line them up with the skin. There's like a bit of back and forth here, but it must be weird. I find it quite relaxing. As long as I know I'm sort of getting somewhere, I'm quite happy. You probably end up with some personal preferences exactly where you want these. Cool, that's good. Do the eyebrow next. It's not actually connected to anything. This was a nice easy one to do. Far off. And I think I've said it a few times, I really would just work to get through this phase and not obsess about it too much, because you will come back in and do another round of finessing, I'm sure. So best off spending the time on that bit. Just get these pretty much roughly in place the first time. Okay, the eyelids. was joined, goes into the corner. Actually helpful, I brought it forwards. It's going to bring the eye bone forward one here as well. Cool. So the other recommendation there was actually that these bones, these are the main sort of control bones, and so you see there's a line here, so you should try and line these up. I think it's more sort of good practice than anything. I'm just going to do that. So I'm going to essentially try and sort of roughly line them up without losing too much sleep over it with the centre of the eye. And the same for this one. Get this one a bit out. So the other thing I've got that I don't see a lot of people talk about, I've got one of those gaming mice with, like, the 12 buttons on the side. It's flipping awesome for this sort of thing, just for flipping backwards and forwards between the views. I've just got it set to 1 to 12, and yeah, flip backwards and forwards. It's also one of the few times where being left-handed is a distinct advantage. I use the mouse I still use my mouse in my right hand even though I'm left-handed, so I can use my mouse and tablet at the same time, which is kind of cool. Not that I'm using a tablet at the moment, but I knew there'd be a benefit at some point of being left-handed. Looking good. Let's get these eyes set now. It's looking pretty good. Okay, just going to bring these in slightly. Didn't have them both picked up then. Don't forget all these bones are just sort of the guide where the rig's getting built from. Yeah, so you're not really going to be breaking a lot. I think that's good enough. I think that's all the face ones, the sort of surface face ones done. Yeah. So next on we'll do the eyes, tongue and teeth. First thing we'll do is move the meta rig onto its own layer, and then earlier I've already put the eyes, teeth and tongue on a separate layer as well, just to make things easy. And so we're going to go into the rig and I'm just going to hide everything that we don't need. So we need the tongue bones here, and then the bottom one here is the jaw bottom, jaw top, eye. So we've got those. Go to this layer and just hide those, and we'll work on the eye first. So it's really important to have this in the center. Okay, so the base of the bone goes in the center, and then the the tip of the bone goes to the middle of the eye. So I'm just going to select the edge loop here. Go back into this mode and cursor selected. If you do cursor selected in local mode, it doesn't carry over into the main mode for some reason. Okay, so we've got that there. Go into the rig. Okay, so that's there. And then for the front, yes, that square in the middle there. These eyes actually come over slightly offset, so we'll see what that does when we get it all rigged. I think it'll be fine. I don't think it'll be a problem. Okay, they're nicely lined up now. And because the eyes come over the same, they're in the right place. So that's good. So let's do the teeth next, I think. So the eyes, they're not in deformation, we're literally parenting them directly to the bone. So I think they'll be absolutely fine. Just going to hide the tongue. Yeah, let's do the teeth. I can turn back on X-rays and see what we're doing. Right, so the teeth we're parenting direct to the bone as well. So you really don't have to be too precious what we're doing here. So when they come over from Make Human, they're actually joined. I've just split the mesh there, and so they're in two sections. And yeah, if this bit pokes through, I'll just chop it off, because the rig itself has got like a full cavity in the mouth anyway, so you won't even notice that. So they're in the right place. That's all there is to that. And then we'll just hide those, and we'll get the tongue out. And again, with the tongue does get deformed, but I'm not going to be too precious about that. Going to roughly space those out. Obviously, with all these ones here, you want to keep them down the middle. That's it. So they're now in the right place. So it's all good. So I think we're there. So the next thing we're going to do is generate the rig. The exciting bit now, generating the rig. Just coming out of edit mode. So. Yep, just gonna have one little glance over here. Actually, before we do that, I'm just going to go in one more time and just have a quick look at the axes on the bone and just make sure that I'm happy with them all, roughly. Now I'm just going to check and make sure everything's unhidden, which is. Turn on axes. So I'm just going to do a really quick check. So it should be pivoting on the X towards the Z, or in the way you should expect. Good. These ones don't matter. These two. Spine only moved in 2 dimensions anyway. Shoulders sort of 3-dimensional, but it looks about right. We already checked that. We already checked the fingers. As good as they're going to get. I'm not going back in there again until we need to. These don't matter. And the only ones that really matter on the face are the jaw. And even that sort of marginal. I think that'll be fine. I'll just rotate that a little bit so it meets with it. Except that was the cheekbone. the jaw, isn't it? Hinging here. I'm going to tweak it a little bit. Honestly, I don't think we need to be overly concerned about that. Yeah, I think we're just going to go for it. Okay. So just highlight the rig, and then in the armature section down here, there's a button that says generate. Click that. Wait a couple of seconds. And here we go. Your rig is generated. So the first thing I'm going to do, so this hasn't parented it or anything. The first thing I'm going to do is move the rig to a new layer. So the layer setup we've got now is we've got the main mesh, eyes and teeth, meta rig, which this is meaningless now, we don't need anything, doesn't do anything, we're just going to keep it obviously in case we need to rerun the rigging process, and then the rig itself. So I'm just going to go into pose mode, and just have an initial look, see what we've got, check the basically the IK settings as much as anything. I might need to tweak that a little bit. I don't know, I think I was just being overzealous. No, looks alright actually. I think that's okay. It's actually really easy to auto way to parent it anyway as well, so it's probably easier to see when we've actually got the rig on there. So look at the hands. Sort of seem to be moving in the right direction. But the fingers. These fingers work slightly differently to the original Rigify. We had the little scale things on them. So if you rotate the root bone, then it'll clench it as well. You can see. So that's probably going to be easier to tell actually when we've rigged it. But it literally is just a case of tweaking the bones with the roll on the fingers. That's looking okay there. So all I'm doing there is doing R and then XX to rotate it on the local axis. You can rotate them in any direction. It's a stretchy rig as well, it's quite stretching. You can turn all that in the controls, and that's probably a whole nother tutorial. This is the control for the mouth. Okay. Eyes. Yep. Okay. So there's the rig generated. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the weighting and parent the mesh. I'll quickly run over how the actual rig itself is set up. So these are all control bones. None of them are deformed bones. These are the ones that come out by default. And basically it's run into 3 different sets. You've got IK bones, you've got your FK bones, and you've got your tweak bones. And they're all set up on different layers. And all these buttons here just control the layers here. That's all they do. And then each bone you've got highlighted, and you'll see here you've got all different options for tweaking them, whether you want to do IK stretching, snap to IK and all that good stuff. Yeah, so I'm just going to leave all that as it is for now. So the actual deformation bones are on these last 3 layers, so don't panic if you sort of close all these off. You just highlight them all again. It's just these last 3 layers that you don't use. You won't do any harm if you have got them, just be no more noise on the screen. This is the core body one. And then these 2 are more sort of internal ones, but we need to use this second one for doing the eyes. And then the third one I've not had to use it at all as yet. So let's do the body first. So I'm just going to highlight this. These are all the deformation bones. And I'm going to highlight the mesh. Turn on X-ray. So the first thing we're going to do is just parent it. So just highlight the mesh, highlight the bones, Control P. I'm just going to do a simple armature deform parenting. Alright. So it hasn't allocated any weights, and literally it's just saved me adding the modifier and finding the object. That's it. Nothing more complicated than that. Now I'm going to go into weight paint mode for the mesh, and because we've parented it, all the bones are available as well, which is cool. So the top tip that was on the company video buried in there was about the tongue. So the tongue we're going to do separately, but if you leave it in there when you do the auto weight painting, it takes the weight off the bones in the face and screws it up because it redistributes where the bone weights go. You don't get a nicer deform. So I'm just going to hide those. Okay, and then select the rest of the bones, and then in the weight section of the weight paint you've got assign from bones. Don't do bone envelopes. That's going to give the whole area of the bone. We just want the bones themselves. So weights, assign automatic from bones. Takes a sec. Okay, so that's allocated all the weights now to the bones. This is the bit where we see where we added that extra bone. So it stops all this bit stretching up with the arm, and we get a much nicer deform. Same with this bit. Okay, I might have put that slightly too high. We'll see what it looks like. But you can see, otherwise if we didn't have that, then this would break up into there. Yeah, so let's see what we've got. Proof is in the pudding. Took them out of weight paint now. I don't actually need to do any weight painting. And we'll go back to the bone layers. And I'm just going to turn back on all the layers. Okay, let's see what we've got. IK. Nice. Seems to be working. Check the foot roll. This is what I said earlier with that, where you place that front bone. If you get it too far over, then it doesn't bend nicely there. But that's good. Seems to be working okay. There might be a few bits we want to do, but let's see how close we've got the fingers. Oh, not too shabby. That's not a million miles off. So if you get these wildly out, then you can or you want to get them a bit better, you can just go back in and tweak those. I'll show you how to rerun the rig generation anyway. These are quite cool though, because you can like slide them around as well. It's actually quite easy to position these. I think it's a lot easier than the other rig, just to tidy them up. Let's have a look at the thumb. Oh, not too bad. See what we've got in the face. Let's have a look at the mouth. It's too bad, it's a little bit pointy in the middle. And you've got these other bones now that you can tweak. So you've actually got, without having to use shape keys, you can actually fiddle with quite a bit of these. I think we might go back on that and look and see if we can do a better job on the mouth. Still, there or thereabouts. Look at the eyes. So we obviously haven't done the eyes yet, but they look good. It's nice. You see how the actual surrounding follows as well, which is really cool. They've done a really nice job on these. These are the ones where I said you didn't have to worry so much about the actual placement, because you're really just telling the bones where the skin is. And yeah, so if you want to, yeah, they just give you nice little just tweaks that you've got. If you know, little subtle options. Yeah. And obviously you can use this in conjunction with shape keys and everything. Oh, let's have a look, see how we've got the arm. Actually, let's get everything cleared. Let's do the John Travolta. See how we look on that. I don't think that's too bad either, really. Oh yeah, done that a tiny bit too much. I'm really not the best for posing. Yeah. Cool. I mean, but yeah, it's basically working though. Let's say tweaking. Heads on stretchy. Yeah, I mean, there's little bits and bobs you might want to tidy up. But I mean, yeah, it's essentially there or thereabouts. Let's just check where that leg was looking like, where we put the hips. I don't think that's too bad either, really. I think that's good enough. So I'm going to go back in and see if we can tweak that mouth a bit, because it's a bit pointy in the middle. I'm not sure what's going on there. And then when we do that, I'll show you how to rerun the rig as well. That's really easy. And then we'll come back and do the eyes, mouth and tongue. We're going to go back in and check the lips now, because I wasn't happy with how that looked. It looked odd. So I'm showing I screwed something up there, which is good. So it's always good to see how you do these things. And I wanted to show you how to rerun the mesh anyway. So I'm going to go back. So leave the rig for a minute and look at the meta rig. Actually, I'm just going to have a quick look at the without the mesh in the way. So there you go. Okay, so despite telling you through the course a million times not to separate bones when doing this, I've predictably gone and done it myself. So these should be all connected in the middle. Okay, so that's what the issue is. I didn't pick them both up together, so it must have left a gap, and that's caused that V shape. So there we go. So I'm just going to put this into the middle. So yeah, it's just slipped, so the X will be 0. Let's put them both together, same for the top one. Sure, you could do SX0 or whatever as well. Okay, that's better. So let's just bring the mesh up as well. Let's see what that looks like. I think they look okay. Yeah, I'm sure that looks fine. Actually, I'm wondering whether I didn't reset the deformation. Let me just check. There you go. Yeah, I didn't reset the deformation either. So that's always remember to do that when you're checking these things. I think they still look about in the right place. I've just done that split. Okay, so really is nothing to worry about. That's what I normally do. I just usually highlight all the layers just for consistency, and I think you even have to. Highlight the rig, sorry, the meta rig. Oh my goodness, meta rig. 2 minute stuff going on. and hit generate. Wait a few secs. There we go. Okay, so it's just regenerated the rig. Okay, just writes over the existing one there. I think there's a unique reference in there. So I have to sort out the parenting again as well. So what I like to do, and again this may be unnecessary, but I like just to make sure I just clear everything out. So I'm just going to clear all the vertex groups out. So we've got nothing. And just going to start from scratch. This is just habit rather than, I'd say, fact from this. So we'll just do the same as we did before. Pick up the mesh. Pose mode. So we just need to highlight the deformation one. Okay, hide the tongue again. Actually, first of all we need to parent it. Now hide the tongue. Pop back into weight paint mode. Highlight all the bones. Weights assigned from bones. Okay. All the weights assigned. Bring the other layers back up. Okay. So just check the. Yep, just got stuff moving. Right, let's have a look at the lips now. That's better. Okay, so that pinching's gone now. And a much better result. That's all it was. So yeah, so if you go along and you can see how easy it is. So if you go along and say your fingers weren't happy, yeah, just spend time doing that and do all that before you do the eyes and the tongue, which we're going to do next. Otherwise, you have to reparent those each time, which is not horrendous, but it's just extra work. So I just get this bit down, as good as you can get it without doing any shape keys or anything. And then we're going to the next stage, which we'll run into now, which is parenting the eyes, mouth, and tongue. So we'll do the tongue first. Teeth hidden at the moment. Okay, so the tongue's on one of the deformation layer. So again, so bring them, if you remember, bring that up, and then we'll just unhide them. I think you can actually just, with the weight paint thing, you can just do it on the selected bones as well if they're not going to block. But I just tend to hide them because it's just easy, just as easy. Okay. So we're just going to do simple parenting like we did before. Armature deform, and then we'll pop the tongue into weight paint mode. Highlight the bones we want to associate with it. Weights assigned from bones. I like doing this method. You only get like 3 little vertex bits. Okay, so that's that sorted. So we'll come out of object mode. And let us, we'll do the teeth next, I think. Okay, so the teeth actually get parented to one of the control bones. I'm just going to unhide everything here, so it's there. And I think those control bones are on layer 1. Yeah. Okay, so this is the bit where you got the eyes and the mouth here. Okay, so you can see the tongue moving with it. It's cool. Yeah, so these are the 2 bones that are aligned where we set the bones up when we set the face rig, and we're just going to do a very simple parent to bone on these. Control P, I'm just going to parent it directly to the bone. No deformation at all because obviously the teeth is pretty solid. Okay, it's all moving together. Nice. And so I don't think we'll have any trouble with that. That'd be good. So let's do the eyes next. So the eyes are on another layer again. So these are on the layer from last. And you've got this sort of spaghetti at the top here. I won't pretend to know what all the other bones do. All I know is you parent it to this one in the middle. And it's as simple as doing the teeth. So I'm just going to highlight the eye, highlight the bone in the middle, parent it to the bone. Eye. I'm sure those other bones are all there for a good reason. Bone in the middle. Okay. So, all being well, we should be fairly good to go now. So let's have a look. So I'm just going to turn all the layers back on again. And we don't need that one. Or that one. So we've just got the control bones up and the rig. Actually, I'm going to turn some of this other stuff off just so we see what we're doing. Just makes it a bit more manageable. So, all being well, this should now move the eyes. Looks like it's working. If you see that, I love it because the skin moves with it as well. It's really nicely done. And these little circles in the middle means you've got individual eye control. It's good. It's probably a little bit wide. And you see your teeth moving with it as well. I'm still not 100% happy with that bottom lip. Anyway, but you get the idea. It might just need a bit more tweaking, a bit more positioning of the bone. Yeah, I mean the worst comes to worst, you can do it with the shape key, but I think you can definitely get it better than that. You might just need to bring those forward. And then you've got all the other bits here, like your face primary keys, so we can do your eyelids. Oops. Yeah, again, it will work really nicely. Yeah, so just play around with all the different bits. So there we go. So I think that's a good stop for the first bit of this tutorial. Hopefully that's been helpful. At least get the basics down for this. If I was doing this for real, I'd probably go back in and just tweak a few more of the bones and do it one last time. But yeah, it's there or thereabouts. So I hope that's been helpful. And next time we'll have a look at perhaps moving some of the weights around with slightly more sort of complex clothing. And you can also extend this rig as well. So you can add additional IK chains if you want to add sort of tails or extra bits for clothing and things like that. It's actually pretty easy to extend. So yeah, in a week or so's time, I'll see if I get time to do another tutorial on that. I need to work through some of that myself in a bit more detail. I've done this one a few times now. I'm getting fairly consistent results. I'm not seeing a lot of people using it. So yeah, hope that's been useful for you. Thanks.